I'm taking your dog if you don't pay my vet bills. That was the text. No greeting, no explanation, no punctuation at the end, just a threat. And it came from my ex-boyfriend's mother. I stared at my phone so long that the screen dimmed twice. For a second, I honestly thought it had to be a joke, a drunk text, a mistake, something taken out of context. Then I read it again. I'm taking your dog. Not our dog, not Ethan's dog, not the dog. Your dog, which made it very clear she knew exactly what she was threatening. I was sitting on the floor next to Max when it came in. Max is a 4-year-old golden retriever mix with one ear that never quite stands up. We adopted him 3 years ago from a rescue about 40 minutes outside the city. Ethan had wanted something low maintenance. I wanted a dog that looked like he'd been through something and still decided to trust people anyway. Max chose me. That's not romantic exaggeration. The volunteer unclipped his leash in the little meet and greet yard, and he walked straight past Ethan, pressed into my legs, and sat down like he'd been waiting for me. Ethan laughed and said, "Guess he made the decision." I didn't know then that Max would end up being the only stable thing I took out of that relationship. When Ethan and I broke up last year, it wasn't dramatic. No cheating, no screaming, just erosion. We'd been together 5 years. The last 2 felt like living next to someone instead of with them. His mother, Linda, had been a presence from day one. Not supportive, not hostile, just omnipresent. She called him every morning, showed up unannounced, had opinions about our furniture, my job, our grocery choices. When we adopted Max, she referred to him as my granddog before we'd even filled out the paperwork. But the paperwork mattered, because the adoption contract was in my name, the microchip was registered to me, the vet account was under me, the pet insurance was under me. Ethan never objected. He said it made sense since I handled most of the logistics anyway. After the breakup, there was no real argument about Max. Ethan moved back into his mom's house. I stayed in the apartment. Max stayed with me. Ethan even said, "He's more attached to you anyway." At the time, I thought that was the most mature thing he'd ever said. I see now it was just the easiest path. For months, everything was quiet. Ethan would text occasionally asking for photos. Linda would comment on Instagram posts with heart emojis and "miss my boy." It annoyed me, but I ignored it. Then 3 weeks ago, Max got sick. It started with vomiting, then lethargy. Then he refused food, which is not normal for a dog who once tried to eat an entire couch cushion. I rushed him to the emergency vet at 2 a.m., shaking so hard I could barely sign the intake form. They suspected a blockage, possibly surgery. I didn't even hesitate. "Do whatever you need to do," I said. I signed every authorization, put down my credit card, called in sick to work. Max ended up needing a procedure, but not full surgery. Something he'd swallowed had to be removed. The final bill was high, but manageable. I paid it, because he's my dog. Because that's what you do. I made the mistake of texting Ethan the next morning to update him. Max had to go to emergency vet last night. He's okay, just recovering. Ethan replied with a thumbs up and, "Glad he's good." An hour later, Linda called. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. "I just heard about Max. Why didn't you call me? I could have helped." I didn't call back. That was mistake number 2, because later that afternoon she texted, "Linda, send me the invoice. I want to see what they charged." It wasn't phrased like a request. It was phrased like an audit. I hesitated. Then I sent her a screenshot of the total. She responded within seconds. "Linda, that's outrageous. You should have taken him to Dr. Harper. We've always used Dr. Harper." I ignored it. An hour later. "Linda, I'll transfer you $800 to help." I didn't ask her to. I didn't expect her to. But $800 is not a small amount, and I was exhausted. So I replied, "That's not necessary." She transferred it anyway. Ethan texted me that evening. "Mom's just worried." I stared at that message for a long time. Worried. That's what he always called it. Control was worry. Interference was care. Criticism was help. I should have sent the money back immediately. I didn't. I told myself I'd reimburse her once I got paid. I told myself this was harmless. 3 days later, Max was home, curled up on my couch with a cone around his head, looking embarrassed but alive. That's when Linda sent the first real message. "Linda, we need to talk about the vet bills." We, again, I replied carefully. Me, I appreciate the $800. I'll send it back this week. Her response came fast. Linda, it wasn't a gift. My stomach tightened. Me, I didn't think it was. I said I'd reimburse you. Then came the message that started everything. Linda, you should have consulted us before making such expensive decisions. Consulted us about my dog at 2 a.m. while he was throwing up blood. I typed, deleted, typed again. Me, it was an emergency. Linda, emergencies don't excuse irresponsibility. Irresponsibility. That word felt deliberate, calculated. I didn't respond. Then, 10 minutes later, Linda, Ethan told me you didn't even consider Dr. Harper, so now he was talking to her, feeding her information. I felt something shift, not fear, clarity. Me, the nearest emergency clinic was 8 minutes away. I'm not driving 40 minutes while he's in distress. 3 dots. Then Linda, you overreacted, and now someone has to pay for it. I stared at that sentence. Someone has to pay for it. I'd already paid for it. Then the next message came. Linda, since I covered part of it, I expect full reimbursement. Plus the additional charges that wouldn't have happened if you'd handled it correctly. Plus additional charges. I actually laughed out loud. It wasn't a pleasant sound. Me, what additional charges? Her response. Linda, emotional distress, gas, time, follow-up appointments I'll need to attend to make sure he's actually okay. Attend like she had custody rights. I felt my chest tighten. Me, Max is fine. There's no need for you to attend anything. Pause. Then, Linda, we'll see about that. I didn't understand what that meant at the time. I do now. 2 days later, the threat arrived. I'm taking your dog if you don't pay my vet bills. No context, no preamble, just that. Max was asleep with his head in my lap when I read it, and for the first time since the breakup, I felt actual fear. Not because she could win legally, but because she might try anyway. And Linda is not the type of person who asks before she takes. I looked down at Max, at the cone still around his neck, at the stitches on his stomach, and I realized something I should have accepted a long time ago. This was never about the vet bill. This was about ownership. And Linda had just decided to test it. I didn't respond to the threat immediately. I read it 5 times. I'm taking your dog if you don't pay my vet bills. The wording mattered. Not, I'll sue you. Not, we need to resolve this. I'm taking your dog. It wasn't financial. It was territorial. I typed, me, that's not happening. She responded instantly. Linda, then pay what you owe. Oh, there it was again. That language of debt. I forced myself to stay calm. Me, I already told you I'm sending back the $800. Linda, that doesn't cover the full amount. My stomach dropped. Me, what full amount? She sent a screenshot. It was a breakdown she had typed herself. $800 transferred. $215 gas, 2 round trips to check on Max. $340 lost wages. $150 follow-up consult with Dr. Harper. $500 emotional distress. Total $2,005. I actually blinked. She had created an invoice for herself, for involvement I never asked for. Me, you chose to come to the clinic. I didn't ask you to. Linda, I came because you're irresponsible. The word again. I could feel my heart pounding in my throat. Me, Max is registered under my name. I handle his care. Linda, he was adopted while you were with Ethan. That makes him family property. Family property. That phrase felt ugly, possessive. Me, no, it doesn't. 3 dots. Linda, if you refuse to reimburse me, I'll be forced to take action. My hands went cold. Me, what action? There was a pause. Then she sent it again. I'm taking your dog if you don't pay my vet bills. This time with a second message immediately after. Linda, I have witnesses who can confirm he was adopted during Ethan's relationship with you. Witnesses. Like we were discussing a custody dispute. I put my phone down. Max shifted in his sleep and let out a small sigh. I suddenly imagined her showing up while I was at work, knocking or not knocking, trying the door, calling his name. He loves people. That's the worst part. He'd walk right up to her. My pulse spiked. I called Ethan. He answered on the third ring. "What's going on?" he asked. "Your mother is threatening to take Max." He sighed. "She's just upset. She said she's taking him. She doesn't mean literally." She wrote it, twice. Silence. Then, "You could just pay her back." I closed my eyes. "I already told her I'm sending the $800. She thinks you mishandled the situation. It was an emergency. She thinks you're exaggerating." I laughed once, sharp. "He was throwing up blood, Ethan." "I'm not saying you were wrong," he said quickly. "I'm just saying she feels like she stepped in." Stepped in. That phrasing again. "Your mom is not co-owner of my dog. He was our dog. He is legally mine." That's when his tone shifted slightly. "Do you really want to escalate this?" I went very still. Escalate. As if I was the one escalating. "She threatened theft," I said quietly. "Don't use that word." "What word?" "Theft. What would you call it?" Silence. Then, carefully, "She just wants to feel respected." There it was. This wasn't about money. It was about hierarchy. "She doesn't get to demand respect through threats," I said. "You're overreacting." That did it. Something inside me hardened. "I'm not paying her anything beyond the $800, I said. "That's going to make this worse." "It's already worse," he exhaled. "I can't get in the middle of this." I almost smiled. He had always been in the middle. He just liked pretending he wasn't. "Then stay out of it," I said, and I hung up. That evening, Linda escalated. She posted on Facebook. It was vague enough to avoid legal trouble. "Some people shouldn't be allowed to own animals if they can't afford proper care." I felt my face burn. Within minutes, mutual friends began reacting. Concerned emojis. "Praying for the dog." "You did the right thing stepping in." She replied to comments with, "Trying my best to protect what's ours." Ours. I felt something primal rise in my chest. I typed a response, deleted it, typed again, deleted. Then I closed the app, because I understood something important in that moment. She wanted me to argue publicly. She wanted a reaction. She wanted drama she could weaponize. Instead, I screenshotted everything. Every post, every comment, every message. Then I opened Max's file folder, adoption contract, microchip registration, insurance paperwork, every single vet invoice with my name on it, and then I noticed something I hadn't thought about in months. The microchip registration included a security question, and I had said it. Not Ethan, not Linda, me. A small wave of relief washed over me. The next day I called the vet clinic. "Hi," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I need to make sure no one can access Max's records without my permission." The receptionist didn't even sound surprised. "We can put a password on the account," she said calmly. "Yes, please." "What's the situation?" she asked gently. "Someone is threatening to take him." She didn't laugh. She didn't question it. "Document everything," she said. "And if they show up, call the police." The word police felt heavy, extreme. But the threat was in writing, and that mattered. By Thursday afternoon, Linda sent another message. "Linda, I've spoken to a lawyer." My stomach dropped. "Linda, since the dog was adopted during Ethan's relationship with you, he has claim." "Claim. Me. The adoption contract is in my name." "Linda, that can be challenged." My hands were shaking now. Was she bluffing? Probably. Did that matter? Not really, because people who are bluffing sometimes still try. Then came the message that made my chest go hollow. "Linda, I'll be by tomorrow to pick him up if payment isn't received. Tomorrow." I stared at the date. I worked from home on Fridays, but she didn't know that, which meant she might assume I wouldn't be there. I didn't respond. Instead, I texted my neighbor, Carla. "Hey, weird question. Do your security cameras cover my driveway?" She replied within minutes. "Yes. Why?" I sent her a screenshot. Her response came in all caps. "What? Call the police if she shows up," she added. That night, I barely slept. Every sound outside made me sit up. Max sensed it. He followed me from room to room. At 9:17 a.m. the next morning, my phone buzzed. "Carla." "She's here." My heart slammed against my ribs. I went to the front window slowly. Linda's SUV was parked halfway in my driveway. She was standing near the fence, calling Max's name. "Come here, sweet boy." Max perked up. His tail wagged. I felt cold all over. She had a leash in her hand and a folder tucked under her arm. I stepped outside before she could try the gate. "What are you doing?" I asked. She smiled like this was a normal visit. "I'm here to get him." "No, you're not." She tilted her head. "I warned you. He's not yours. He's family. He's legally mine." She stepped closer. "I'm not arguing law with you. I'm correcting a mistake." Mistake? Like I was a clerical error. Max strained slightly toward her voice. I grabbed his collar gently. "Leave," I said. Her expression changed. Not angry, disappointed. "You're making this ugly." "You made it ugly." She lowered her voice. "You can either hand him over peacefully or we can do this formally." Formally? I knew what she meant. She wanted to scare me into backing down. I stepped back toward the door. "Carla is recording," I said calmly. Her eyes flicked toward the neighbor's house, just for a second. That was enough. "I'll call the police," I added. She laughed. "Go ahead." So I did. My hands were shaking as I dialed. I could hear her muttering behind me. "He's better off with us anyway." "Us," the dispatcher answered. "Someone is attempting to take my dog," I said. "And I have written threats." Linda's face changed slightly when she heard that word. Threats. "Stay inside," the dispatcher said. "Officers are on their way." Linda crossed her arms. "You're really going to embarrass yourself like this?" "No," I said quietly. "You are." 10 minutes felt like an hour. She tried one more time. "You can avoid all this by just reimbursing me." "There's nothing to reimburse." "You owe me." The pattern again: debt, leverage, ownership. Then the police cruiser pulled up, and for the first time since this started, I felt steady. The patrol car pulled up slowly, like this was just another routine call. For me, it felt like the ground deciding whether it would hold. 2 officers stepped out. One older, calm. The other younger, scanning the situation without expression. Linda straightened immediately. Her posture shifted. Shoulders back, chin lifted, smile back in place. I'd seen this version of her before. Polite, composed, reasonable. The older officer approached first. "What seems to be the problem?" Linda spoke before I could. "There's been a misunderstanding," she said warmly. "This dog belongs to my son's family. I'm simply retrieving him." Retrieving? Like he was a package. I kept my voice steady. "She threatened to take my dog if I didn't pay her money." The officer looked at me. "Do you have that in writing?" "Yes." I handed him my phone. He read the message silently. Then he read it again, out loud. "I'm taking your dog if you don't pay my vet bills." The words sounded different in someone else's voice. Sharper, clearer. Linda shifted slightly. "That's being taken out of context," she said quickly. I was emotional. The dog was neglected. "Was the dog neglected?" the officer asked me calmly. "No, he had emergency treatment. I paid the bill. She voluntarily sent money and then demanded more." The younger officer asked, "Whose name is on the adoption paperwork?" "Mine." "Microchip?" "Mine." "Vet account?" "Mine." I had the folder ready. Adoption contract, microchip registration, insurance documents, receipts. The older officer flipped through them slowly. Linda stepped closer. "My son adopted that dog with her. We were all involved." "Ma'am," the officer said evenly, "involvement is not ownership." Her jaw tightened slightly. "She owes me money," Linda insisted. "I helped with medical expenses." "That's a civil matter," the officer replied. "Threatening to take property in exchange for payment is not." The word property landed like a verdict. Max sat beside me, tail still, eyes moving between us. Linda's voice sharpened. "He is not property." The officer met her gaze. "In the eyes of the law, he is." Silence. The younger officer looked at my phone again. "Ma'am," he said to Linda, "you wrote this message?" She hesitated just long enough. "Yes, but—" "And you intended to take the dog if she didn't pay you?" "I intended to protect him." "That's not what this says." He turned the screen toward her. The text was stark. No justification, no concern, just a threat. I watched something shift in her face. Not guilt, calculation. She pivoted. "She's unstable," Linda said suddenly. "She overreacts. My son can confirm that. The older officer looked at me. Has she attempted to enter your property? Yes, she came onto my driveway. She tried to call him over. Carla stepped out of her house at that moment. I have it on camera, she said clearly. Linda's head snapped toward her. The performance cracked. This is absurd, Linda snapped. I'm being treated like a criminal. The officer didn't raise his voice. You threatened to take someone's property in writing and showed up to do so. It's my family's dog. Legally, he said again, it is not. The younger officer handed my phone back. Do you want to pursue charges? He asked me quietly. That word felt enormous. Charges. I swallowed. I want her to leave, I said, and I want it documented. Linda's composure fractured for a second. You're seriously doing this? She demanded. Over a misunderstanding? The older officer stepped slightly between us. Ma'am, you need to leave the property. She stared at me. I recognized that look, the one she used when Ethan didn't obey immediately. Disbelief that someone was saying no. This isn't over, she said softly. The officer responded before I could. It is for today. She opened her mouth again, then closed it. Because she knew. The message existed. The camera footage existed. The paperwork existed. This wasn't opinion anymore. It was documentation. She walked back to her SUV stiffly. No wave, no goodbye. Just rage contained in posture. The officers stayed until she drove off. The younger one turned to me. Save everything, he said. If she contacts you again with threats, that changes things. Can I file something? I asked. Yes, the older officer said. We can issue a trespass warning today. If she returns, it escalates. Escalates. I nodded. Yes, I'd like that. They took my statement, documented the text, noted the attempted retrieval. When they finished, the older officer gave Max a small scratch behind the ear. Cute dog, he said. And just like that, the air shifted. Not chaotic, not threatening, normal. They left. Carla walked over immediately. Oh my God, she said. She's unhinged. I laughed, shaky but real. She thought she could just take him. Carla shook her head. She picked the wrong person to put that in writing. That's when my phone buzzed. Ethan. Of course, I answered. What did you do? He demanded. What did I do? I repeated. Mom said you called the police on her. She threatened theft. You humiliated her. She showed up at my house. You're blowing this out of proportion. I felt something settle in my chest. Calm, clarity. She wrote she was taking my dog unless I paid her, I said evenly. That's extortion. She didn't mean it like that. She meant it enough to drive here with a leash. Silence. Then he said the thing that ended it. You could have just paid her. There it was. Not, are you okay? Not, is Max okay? You could have just paid her, paid for peace, paid for compliance, paid to maintain hierarchy. And suddenly I understood something I hadn't fully allowed myself to before. Ethan wasn't neutral. He was comfortable. Comfortable letting someone else apply pressure. Comfortable benefiting from my submission. I'm done, I said. With what? He asked. With both of you. He scoffed. You're being dramatic. No, I replied quietly. I'm being finished. And I hung up. Max leaned against my leg. Warm, alive, safe, for now. But something bigger had just happened. This wasn't about a dog anymore. It was about a boundary. And for the first time in years, I didn't bend. The trespass warning was issued that afternoon. It felt surreal signing the paperwork. The officer explained it calmly. If she returns to your property after this, it becomes criminal trespass. Simple, clean, legal, no emotion attached, which made it powerful. I forwarded the confirmation email to myself twice, saved screenshots, backed them up to the cloud. Then I did something small but symbolic. I updated Max's microchip contact information again, even though it was already in my name. I added a password to the account, added a secondary emergency contact that was not Ethan. Then I called the vet and added a security code to his file. No one gets information without it. No one schedules appointments without it. No one touches him without my authorization. That night, Ethan texted again. You really want this to be the end? I didn't respond. 5 minutes later, Mom feels attacked. 10 minutes later, you didn't have to escalate. I read every message. I didn't answer any of them because I finally understood something. There was no version of this where I stayed in their orbit and remained safe. Even if Linda never showed up again, the threat had already happened. The entitlement had already surfaced. And Ethan had already chosen his side. The next morning, Linda posted again, another vague Facebook message. Sometimes you try to help people and they weaponize your kindness. Comments flooded in, sympathy, support. You did your best. I screenshotted it. Not because I planned to respond, but because documentation had become instinct. Then, something unexpected happened. One of Ethan's cousins messaged me privately. I saw the police car yesterday. Are you okay? I hesitated. Then I sent her the screenshot of the text. Just the text, no commentary. Her reply came 5 minutes later. She actually wrote that? Yes. Wow. That was it. No debate, no defense, just clarity. That's the thing about written threats. They don't rely on interpretation. They sit there, plain, undeniable. By Sunday, the silence began. Ethan stopped texting. Linda didn't reach out again. Not because she'd suddenly respected me, but because the dynamic had shifted. She no longer had leverage, no emotional panic, no compliance, no fear. And people like her don't escalate when there are consequences. They retreat, they regroup, they look for easier targets. A week later, I received a certified letter. Return address, Linda. I almost laughed. Of course. I opened it carefully. Inside was a typed letter demanding formal reimbursement of $2,005 within 14 days. At the bottom was a sentence. Failure to comply will result in legal action regarding shared ownership of the animal. I read it twice. Then I noticed something. There was no lawyer letterhead, no attorney signature, just her. Typing, posturing, threatening. Again. I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded the letter to the same officer who had issued the trespass warning. His response was short. If she files anything, respond through proper legal channels. Do not engage directly. So I didn't. 2 weeks passed. Nothing happened. No lawsuit, no filing, no court notice. Because there was nothing to file. Max healed. His stitches dissolved. His cone came off. He went back to stealing socks and falling asleep halfway off the couch. Life stabilized. But something inside me had changed permanently. The fear reflex was gone. The urge to appease was gone. The old instinct to smooth things over and keep peace at my own expense, gone. Ethan tried once more about a month later. A long message. He said he missed Max. He said he missed us. He said his mom was just protective. Then he asked if he could stop by to see the dog. That part almost made me laugh. Stop by? After a trespass warning, after police involvement, after telling me I should have just paid her. I typed one sentence. No. Then I blocked him. Blocked Linda. Blocked her alternate account. Blocked the cousin who had once told me to be understanding. I didn't make an announcement. I didn't send a final speech. I just disappeared from their access. The quiet that followed was unfamiliar at first. I kept expecting a knock, a message, a scene. Nothing came. Because boundaries aren't loud once they're enforced. They're quiet. They're firm. They don't negotiate. About 2 months later, Carla showed me something on her phone. Linda had posted a photo of a new puppy. Caption, "Finally doing things the right way." I felt nothing. No jealousy, no anger, just clarity. She didn't want Max. She wanted control. When control failed, she replaced the target. That was never about a dog. It was about ownership, about debt, about forcing someone to bend. But here's the truth. Pets aren't leverage. They aren't bargaining chips. They aren't emotional collateral. And threats in writing? They're gifts. Because when the police officer read that text out loud, "I'm taking your dog if you don't pay my vet bills," it stopped being a family dispute. It became evidence. And once something becomes evidence, it loses its intimidation power. Max is asleep next to me right now, one ear folded, breathing slow, safe. The locks are changed, the cameras are up. The vet file is password protected. And the only people who have access to him are the ones who understand something simple. Love is care, not control. She thought she could scare me into paying. She thought she could claim ownership through pressure. Instead, she got a trespass warning. She got documentation. She got distance, and she lost access. He wasn't taken. He wasn't negotiated. He wasn't shared. He stayed exactly where he belonged, and so did I. No contact wasn't dramatic. It wasn't explosive. It was quiet, permanent, irreversible. And for the first time since I met that family, peace doesn't feel fragile. It feels owned by me.